Federal prosecutors are now treating executives at pharmaceutical companies the same way that they would treat drug dealers, which is important when you consider the fact that the opioid crisis and the opioid epidemic continues. There are still people who are addicted to these prescription painkillers, and most of it has to do with some of the actions taken by these executives. Now, according to the New York Times, prosecutors said the former executives at Rochester Drug Cooperative ignored red flags and shipped tens of millions of oxycodone pills and fentanyl products to pharmacies they actually knew were distributing drugs illegally. Their sales soared, as did the compensation of the chief executive. Now, the chief executive in this story has decided to plead not guilty. And if he is found guilty, and it appears that there's like a mountain of evidence against him, he has to serve a minimum of 10 years behind bars, but could get life in prison. I'll give you the details on that in just a second. But first, let us celebrate that there are finally some consequences for people in positions of power.
Seriously. I like what you were saying. I thought I knew how you were gonna finish the sentence because you started off saying they are finally treating these pharmaceutical companies, I don't remember the word used, like drug dealers. And I thought you were gonna say because they are.
They are, they are. I mean, they're glorified drug dealers and they've gotten away with this behavior for so long. And I think enough people have died, and let's keep it real, enough white people in America have died.
Right, because that's when
it becomes
they're
gonna do something.
Yeah,
yes,
sure.
And the numbers are gigantic. So prosecutors charged Rochester Drug Cooperative, or RDC, as a corporate entity with conspiring to distribute drugs, conspiracy to defraud the United States, and also failing to file suspicious order reports. So for instance, if you are an executive at a pharmaceutical company, or if you're working in compliance to ensure that your company is complying with federal regulations, if you notice that a pharmacy is doing some shady stuff with the drugs that you're distributing to them, you're supposed to report that to the government, and they weren't doing that. RDC entered into an agreement under which the government will hold off on prosecuting the company on the charges as long as it pays a $20 million fine, complies with the controlled substances law, and submits to 5 years of supervision by an independent monitor. So that's what's happening to the company overall, but the executives are still dealing with serious charges. So let's get to that. First, let me just note that the company admitted in court papers that it intentionally violated federal narcotics laws by shipping dangerous, highly addictive opioids to pharmacies, knowing that the prescription medicines were being sold and used illicitly. And also the charging documents portray the company largely animated by chief executive Lance Dowd's greed. So he actually drove up the sales of oxycodone pills ninefold over 4 years, from 4.7 million in 2012 to 42.2 million in 2016. Wow. So he's pushing these drugs, pushing these drugs, pushing these drugs, and there's a reason for it. His personal pay went up. Now, fentanyl sales shot up even more over the same period to 1.3 million doses from 63,000 doses. Dowd's compensation tied to the sales more than doubled, climbing to over $1.5 million. Wow. It's just gross. So he is pleading not guilty. And so he's gonna have to, there's no plea agreement, there's no settlement for him. He's gonna have to go through the process. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of evidence against him. The other executive has decided to plead guilty, William Pietraszewski. His name is long, but he has decided to cooperate with investigators, and he'll probably get a lesser sentence, or a lesser sentence as a result of that.
Right, because he jumped first.
Yeah,
because they went in there like, okay.
He came to the altar call
One
first.
of you
He'll get some mercy. That's right. There's some forgiveness there. I love that they are now prosecuting these men for their crimes.
Right.
At the same time, not prosecuting the company is really kind of what bothers me. I used to represent pharmaceutical companies for off-label sales when they would do things that aren't necessarily legal. And you're not necessarily gonna stop the company from doing that, even if you take their head down, because they'll grow another head. And so something to consider also is that having them pay a $20 million fine might sound like a lot, but this company, its annual revenue last year was about $2 billion. Wow. So do you think 20 million when you're making $2 billion about a year is really gonna make a dent? And I say no, it's not. So why not prosecute it? They need to shut this company down, and they really should be making an example of this company and the executives.
Yeah, you make a good point there. And look, corporations, especially highly profitable ones, get away with a lot. But if you look at how executives have been treated historically by our justice system, it's rare for them to even, face trial. I mean, look at what happened after the financial collapse. All of these executives at all these financial institutions who caused people to lose their homes, to lose their retirement savings, they didn't have to stand trial. Many of them got giant bailouts.
I was gonna say, yes, basically all of these banks, Bernie Madoff'd people.
Yep.
Yes.
And they got money for it because it's kind of like how people talk about like Medicare or like or private insurance. Well, we need it just because the system needs it to work. But the system wasn't working.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
And there was nothing done to break up the banks.
I would like to think that these executives suffered in some way. They couldn't get that second jet that they wanted. You guys, I really don't know that you're being sympathetic enough. It's tough. My Louis Vuittons need me.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below. Then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.